don't want to miss out on the virtual showcase of Vinci Mas, June 26th to July 7th. The events of Vinci Mas 2019 will be shown on the corresponding dates of the scheduled events for Vinci Mas 2020. It's Pan, Mas, Calypso, and Soca. All will be shown on VC3 TV at 2 p.m. daily. Then catch the repeat on social media broadcast, 9 p.m. simultaneously on VC3 and Vinci Mas Facebook pages. It's absolutely free. The virtual showcase of Vinci Mas, June 26th to July 7th on VC3 TV and Facebook.
Paying is faster and easier with Flow FastPay. Use your MasterCard or Visa and pay from anywhere. Log on to discoverflow.co/fastpay and press Consumer. Select your country and enter your account number. Enter the amount to be paid and an email address. Enter your credit card information. You'll receive a payment confirmation with the transaction details, along with a receipt to your email address. It's fast, safe, and easy. Flow, keeping you connected.
On Friday, July 3rd,
there'll be thousands of dollars to be won. A lotto jackpot of
$66,000.
A new home, car, or that college education.
Lotto, you have to be in it to win it.
Next lotto jackpot,
$66,000.
Good evening and welcome to this evening's edition of Roundtable Talk. I'm pleased to welcome the Minister of Tourism, Cecil McCarthy, and the Chief Executive Officer of the SVG Tourism Authority, Mr. GLEN BEACHE. And we are going to be talking COVID-19 and tourism here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Glad you can make it.
Yes.
Thank you for having us, cousin.
Okay. You see, you must throw me off track. I want to start, first of all, by talking about how COVID-19 has affected the local tourism industry so far here in SVG. So I don't know who wants to go first with that one, Minister?
Well, I've had the opportunity and occasion to speak to the nation from time to time, including at the highest discussion level at Parliament. And I have indicated on every occasion that the tourism sector, and I include sports and culture in that group of sectors, we were the hardest hit of all of the sectors from COVID-19. In fact, we were not only hit, we are still down and counting. But as we go on with this discussion, we'll see that we are a very resilient set of sectors, and we are positioning ourselves for the rebound when that comes sooner rather than later.
Very interesting that you're saying that those sectors have been the hardest hit. From where you stand as the person behind the Tourism Authority in terms of the day-to-day stuff that's happening, what's your position?
I tend to agree with what the Minister has said. I think we have to look at it overall. The sector is, once you cut travel, obviously, it's going to be hard hit. And as we try and do what we need to do to make sure that we get some semblance of bringing it back to some sort of normalcy, we look at what we can do. I think the government has done a tremendous job in their stimulus package of trying to normalize everything. And I think as we move forward, and when we look at what the ministry has put in place in terms of the minister and the ministry have put in place in terms of the policy, which includes the stimulus package, in terms of what we're looking to do further afield moving forward, I think we have to understand what this means. I mean, we've postponed or cancelled, whichever one you want to look at it, Minister, I ought to say that, in terms of the biggest cultural festival in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We should be right now in the middle of Carnival of Vincy Mass, which for me, the only carnival that's bigger than us in the Caribbean is Trinidad and Tobago. So obviously it's had a tremendous effect on us, and we have to make sure that we will look at what is to come, balance it, but also balance the fact that it's about the health and security of our nation and our nationals, and about the economic aspect of everything. So I think once we move forward from that aspect, we'll be good to go.
You see, one of the reasons for this major impact also is that tourism is the number one productive sector in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and indeed for most of the Caribbean countries. And when your most important sector, where the economy is concerned, is hit, it means that you are severely damaged. And we have been in this state for the last, since February, end of February, March. And for the last couple of months, there has been no activity where tourism is concerned that impacts positively on the economy. And therefore, if you do not have that injection and that stimulus in the economy where tourism is concerned, then you would be at a position of struggle. As Glenn indicated, we, from the government standpoint, we have implemented a number of initiatives under the recovery and stimulus package, and therefore we have been able to activate those and offered some relief to the operators in the three sectors, and hopefully that will take us into recovery mode where we can start implementing programs again and therefore have some stimulus in the economy itself coming out of the activities in the three sectors.
Let's talk about some specific things that you are responding to, or in terms of the stimulus. What are some of the specific things that will be done or are being done?
Well, let's look first of all at the areas that were impacted. The stakeholders in the three sectors. Case of tourism, it would be the accommodation sector. Those operating in the sector, for example, the taxi, the tour operators. We also have persons who are involved in the cultural and professional aspect of the industry. So where tourism is concerned, those would have been the areas impacted. Where sport is concerned, basically all sporting activities came to a halt. And it means therefore that there's no activity in the communities. Sporting activities in the communities would stimulate economic activity as well. And where culture is concerned, Glenn mentioned that the biggest activity, Vincy Mass, that was virtually cancelled. But we had other cultural festivals and cultural activities as well that were also cancelled. And it meant also that no economic spin-offs in the communities and across the country. So those are the areas that were hardest hit. And I'm sure that you, a little later, would want us to go into a little detail in terms of how they were hit and how we get out of it.
We can do that now. We can talk about how exactly they were impacted.
All right. So, for example, we did not close our borders, but the airlines stopped flying. The three international carriers that we enjoy flights from, that is New York, Miami, and Toronto, those carriers stopped flying. Liat also stopped flying. So although we didn't close the borders, persons weren't coming into the destination. If we have no visitors, the rooms will go empty. And therefore, with few exceptions, the hotels closed their doors. It meant that they sent home their workers. And they have been without, in most cases, without an earning since March this year. The persons who operate taxis and the tour operators, the tour buses, they also would have been without activity. The taxi operators at the airport, nobody's coming in, so they have no business. So those areas were severely impacted upon. The stimulus, therefore, aimed at providing the necessary relief to persons operating in those sectors. If I can look at the area of sport, we were not able to have any hosting of any regional or international fixtures. All of the local competitions were brought to a halt as well. So the sportsmen and sportswomen, the coaches, the managers who would have had the opportunity to have some activity and have some sort of income earning opportunity, that went away from them. And the same applied for the cultural sector, where the cultural artists, the practitioners in culture, nobody was coming in, so the craft persons could make a dollar. Therefore, they had to stop producing items because there's nobody there to buy the items. So all of those sectors, it was necessary for the stimulus to impact upon them to offer that relief. And in fact, the programs have been doing that, and we could give some detail on that.
How successful has that been to date?
Well, I would say pretty successful. Persons, it would not come anywhere near the income earning opportunities that they had when the sector was up, because let us remember, we were coming off of the fact that 2020 was going to be a record-breaking year across all three sectors. The three arrival types, by air, by yacht, and by cruise, were going to break all the records this year. They broke them last year, they were going to break the records again this year. And we are going to have more sporting activity than ever this year, 2020, and also cultural activities. We are going to exceed what we experienced in previous years. Vinci Mass was going to be a blast. Easter was going to be a blast on mainland, in BEACHE, on Union Island, and we lost the opportunity through those those various festivals and activities. So really and truly, the impact has been very, very severe, and therefore we are hoping that with the stimulus packages now, which aims at all of those operators in those sectors, with the stimulus package that has been rolled out and continue to be rolled out, that the relief would limit the pain and suffering that these persons are feeling at this moment. So not to the level that they would have been receiving in terms of income levels, but some relief.
Glenn, how do we pick up the pieces?
In terms of?
As we go forward, tourism-wise, we are set to...
The pandemic has put obviously it's a problem to us. Not only to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but around the Caribbean and internationally. The problem with the pandemic is that we don't know when it's going to come to a halt, or when we're going to have a specific way of saying that we're close to the end, that we've dealt with it. We don't know when things are going to get back to normal. For example, when you look at the United States, which is one of our biggest markets, you see, according to some of the experts, that we have a second wave. According to other experts, it's part of the first wave. And so we look at Miami, Florida, which up to Saturday had 10,000 new cases. You look at Texas, which comes on, and we have a lot of traffic through Miami to St. Vincent and the Grenadines from Texas. So it's a matter of looking at it and balancing it properly in terms of how we do it and how we move forward. We can't make a move without speaking to the Ministry of Health and Environment. And that is going to play a big part in how we move forward. Now, we don't want to kill everything. And I think St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have been very fortunate in terms of how our technical people in the Ministry of Health have dealt with it, how the government on a whole have dealt with it. We are, so to speak, considered the black sheep of CARICOM, because we didn't close our borders. Every other Caribbean country closed their border, and we have done well with it. And that comes down not only to the technical people in the Ministry of Health, but it comes down also to our citizens and how we've reacted to this and have moved forward with it. But it's going to be a difficult move forward, tourism-wise. Before coming here, I've spoken to people. They're a bit scared about the flights coming out of Miami. We've set our protocols. Our protocols are very different to what has taken place in the other Caribbean countries.
And when we come back from this segment, that's where we want to pick up the protocols as we prepare to welcome people back to St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the next few days. We're back in just a moment.
Channel 114. Channel 114.
Is faster and easier with Flow FastPay. Use your MasterCard or Visa and pay from anywhere. Log on to discoverflow.co/fastpay and press Consumer. Select your country and enter your account number. Enter the amount to be paid and an email address. Enter your credit card information. You'll receive a payment confirmation with the transaction details, along with a receipt to your email address. It's fast, safe, and easy. Flow, keeping you connected.
Welcome back. Glenn, just before the break, you were talking about the fact that there are people who have expressed some kind of skepticism about the flights that are coming in from Miami. I know that there are some brand new protocols for entrance in Vincent and the Grenadines. Let's expand on those a bit to assure people that...
I think our protocols are very good. I think we have put together a balance between making sure our citizens are safe and making sure that those visitors who want to come into St. Vincent and the Grenadines are able to have a good time and enjoy themselves. Now, it is not perfect. Nothing will ever be perfect. And as you monitor what's going on internationally, it's something that you'll have to continue to look at. I spoke about just before we went to the break what's going on in Florida, Texas, Arizona, and the U.S. is one of our biggest markets, so there's no getting away from it. We look at what is going on in the United Kingdom in terms of increase in certain things, and what it comes down to is that we think we've struck a balance with it. I think our Ministry of Health and the Environment have done a very good job in terms of what they've put forward with the protocol. So basically, what our first flight out of Miami is July 11th. Speaking to American Airlines, that flight is full. Our first flight out of Toronto is July 23rd. I haven't received what their bookings are like. But what it comes down to is simply this. We have to make sure we have the testing procedures in place. If you're coming into St. Vincent and the Grenadines for the first phase, which takes place from July 1st to July 31st, if you have had a test within 72 hours before you arrive in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and it's negative, then you go. If not, then you have to be tested. After you're tested at the airport, you go straight to whether it's your dwelling or a hotel, and then you stay there for those 24 hours, after which time we should get back the results, and that's what the Ministry of Health has put in. Now, there's no guarantee that the protocol is going to remain that way. Obviously, we have to monitor, or I should say the Ministry of Health has to monitor what is taking place in the United Kingdom, in the United States, in Canada, and all around the Caribbean, Latin America, everywhere. We have to be very cognizant of what's going on internationally. But we think we have struck a good balance. Now, mind you, a lot of what is taking place with the protocol around the Caribbean is no matter what, you're going into quarantine for 14 days. Whether you agree with it or not, that's what they have decided to do. We have our own protocol, but obviously we have gone against the norm, and I think we have been very good at it. We've been successful at it, but that's no reason for us to take our foot off the pedal. I think we have to be cognizant of what's taking place.
So there's no harmonized protocol among the region, so to speak?
Some of it is there, but not all of it. Some of it is there.
If I can point to two things, because persons who travel, they not only expect these protocols to be in place, but they would want them to be in place. They expect them, but they would want them to be in place for their own protection and for the protection of the population. But we still have to try to make it as hassle-free as possible. So the protocols are not so demanding and invasive as to turn off someone who wants to travel to the destination. And Glenn made the point that we looked at all of those aspects. Safety, yes, but as hassle-free as possible. We expect that we'll have cases that will come to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. When we look at what is happening in some of our neighboring countries, we see that they have cases coming in. But importantly, and we have been pretty good at it thus far, the Ministry of Health and all of the stakeholders involved in the process of managing COVID thus far, including the government entities, they have responded quite well, managed well. We now have no active cases now. But even as we prepare to welcome persons to the destination again, the ministry and the stakeholders have to be fleet-footed. In other words, they have to be able to respond very quickly. If there's a positive case, if there's need for tracking, for tracing, so they have to be able to respond very quickly so that we do not have spread of any positive cases, from any positive cases that come in. So those aspects are going to be very, very important. We have the protocols in place for persons coming by air and persons coming by sea, by yacht as well. We are still waiting on, and we're looking to have a common protocol where the cruise lines are concerned, and there have been several meetings thus far, including as recent as yesterday, to see if we can have a more common approach than we have now with those other two aspects, so that when we welcome the cruisers, that we do so in a pretty harmonious manner. But thus far, we have managed well, and I expect that with the protocols that will also be closely monitored by all concerned, that will continue to have COVID-19 under control, and that the population and those coming in can be comfortable. That St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a very safe destination, and they will be looked after as we look after the population at the same time.
So I know there are protocols for people who are actually arriving, whether by land or sea or air. Well, not land, but sea and air. What about protocols for the hotels? Are there any?
Yeah, we have there's been a task force that has been put in place by the minister and cabinet. And we've looked at a lot of things for the diving industry, for the hotels,
taxis,
tour operators, taxis, tour guides. CAFA released a document that was very well written, which we are going to add to our standards. And we're looking at it. I meet with my staff next week, my management staff, to look at how we add it to the standards. So our standards now will include segments to deal with COVID. And so all those things are being put in place. But all of what we do, these standards, so the task force has come up with certain recommendations for all the industries I just spoke about. And so we're waiting on to hear back from the Ministry of Health and the Environment in terms of what they think about this issue. Now, they just got those yesterday, so we haven't had the feedback from them yet, but those things are going to be put in place. They will have to be put in place, whether, all taxi drivers wear masks, and I'm just saying that, I'm not saying that it's not going to happen, but wear masks, whether the hotels have certain pump stations for hand sanitizer around the hotel, depending on what. Marriott, for example, released their protocols where we're used to having our hotel rooms cleaned every day. Their take on it is that they're going to have it cleaned before you arrive in your hotel room and after you leave, depending on the stay, and depending on how long you stay, they might have every 2 days or 3 days, or if you request something specially. So the industry has changed quite a bit in terms of what the protocols are going to be, how we're looking at it, how we're moving forward with it. But I think everybody is going to have to adjust to what is coming.
Basically, we call it now the new norm.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the new normal. And in addition to all of the areas that Glenn pointed to, these visitors are going to still be moving around St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And therefore, we have to also pay attention to the sites, the tourism sites that they will be visiting, in addition to the persons who will be taking them around. So they would also have to adhere to the standards, the new standards that we will be putting in place. So it had been it's been a collaborative effort by all. Glenn mentioned that we have this advisory committee that has been established by the ministry through cabinet, and therefore they would continuously, on an ongoing basis, advise the ministry, advise cabinet in consultation at all times with the Ministry of Health and the health personnel, what we are doing, if we're doing it right, if there are any shortcomings, so that we can make the necessary adjustments. So we are pretty satisfied and comfortable that we are at a right place as we prepare ourselves to welcome us to the destination. So I think as a country we can feel safe, we can feel comfortable that everything is being put in place to welcome the visitors.
What's the composition of that particular committee that you just mentioned?
The task force.
The task force.
All right. So Glenn sits on the task force, but it draws from various ministries, stakeholders in the industry, because we pointed to several of the areas that they have to advise on. So we'll have the necessary personnel from those areas. We have the hotel and tourism industry, we have the Ministry of Health, we have the Tourism Authority, the ministry itself, persons who, National Parks, Rivers and Beaches Authority, the National Sports Council. Those are some of the entities that are represented on the task force.
So what kind of synergy will exist between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Tourism in managing and policing and ensuring that these protocols are adhered to?
Well, the task force would be there on an ongoing basis. Each of those entities represented, they would also have a role to play, an active role to play. The committee will be meeting on an ongoing basis regularly. So therefore, in the beginning, which will be probably the most testing, to ensure that all of the systems are in place, and that is also going to be important, that the systems that are put in place are monitored by the various entities, and that they report regularly. And of course, you would have cabinet that would have an oversight, because for the last 3 months, every week at cabinet, the line ministers are expected to report on what is happening within their ministries as it relates to the different initiatives that are being put in place for COVID. And that has been one of the very important exercises that has been taking place. Cabinet has their finger on the pulse to ensure that everything is being done in accordance to St. Vincent and the Grenadines continuing to be a safe destination.
So it's really a link, a chain. You have the workers, employees in the various sectors, in the hotels, in the parks, etc. How are we going to manage?
Yeah, well, if we look at the numbers first of all, and that's very important. So the hotels, I mentioned that most of them are closed, but they are anxious to open. So therefore, they have also been following very closely what is happening and our preparation. So they have a role to play. Glenn will tell you that when we implemented standards several years ago, one of the first countries to do so successfully, we had to have the buy-in of the persons in the industry. That's one of the success stories also with our management of COVID-19. The government was able to get the buy-in of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and therefore they collaborated on every step of the way, and that made it so much easier for us to implement the various initiatives.
When we come back, I want to talk about those new standards. Would they remain the same, or would they have to change or adjust?
Mm-hmm.
When we come back, we'll talk some more about that.
You don't want to miss out on the virtual showcase of BEACHE Mass, June 26th to July 7th. The events of BEACHE Mass 2019 will be shown on the corresponding dates of the scheduled events for BEACHE Mass 2020. It's Pan, Mass, Calypso, and Soca. All will be shown on VC3 TV at 2 p.m. daily. Then catch the repeat on social media broadcast, 9 p.m. simultaneously on VC3 and BEACHE Mass Facebook pages. It's absolutely free. The virtual showcase of BEACHE Mass, June 26th to July 7th on VC3 TV and Facebook.
Paying is faster and easier with Glow FastPay. Use your MasterCard or Visa and pay from anywhere. Log on to discoverflow.co/fastpay and press Consumer. Select your country and enter your account number. Enter the amount to be paid and an email address. Enter your credit card information. You'll receive a payment confirmation with the transaction details, along with a receipt to your email address. It's fast, safe, and easy. Glow, keeping you connected.
Welcome back. When we took the break, we were talking about the whole question of standards, but just before we bring the minister back to expand on that somewhat, don't forget that you can contribute to the program. Send your questions, comments, concerns, and our panelists will be sure to respond to them. So, Minister, how have these standards changed with COVID-19?
Yes, I was expanding on the buy-in and the collaboration between the different players in the sector, because we had over 320 taxi operators in the country that were affected. The stimulus assisted them to tide over for a little period. We offered support around about $500 to each of the operators. We had over 30 tour bus operators. They received a stimulus of about $2,000 to help them in this difficult period. The water taxi operators, we had about 45 of them that benefited from a $300 stimulus package. We had over 200 cultural practitioners that benefited $300 from the stimulus package. And for the Vinci Mass, persons involved in Vinci Mass, over 250 of them that received support. Now, they are therefore major stakeholders in this process, and therefore we expect that they would want to see the various industries, the sector up and running as quickly as possible. So GLEN will point to some of these existing standards and what will have to become the new normal. And I'm sure that these persons are also following this process very closely, so that they now understand and they would be able to police, if I can use that word, to implement and police these new standards of the new norm as it relates to the sector, tourism, sports and culture in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Well, what basically comes to, we've put standards, and the Minister spoke about it, we've put standards in place. We've had it for over, I think, 6 years right now, in terms of for taxi drivers, hoteliers, tour operators, tour guides, and all of those things are going to have to change. We're not going to change them completely in terms of just get rid of what we've had before. But COVID, the pandemic of COVID, has put something new on our plate, so to speak. So what we have done, the task force that the Minister and Cabinet have put in place, which includes the Hotel and Tourism Association, both taxi drivers associations, the Port Authority, Sports Council, just to name a few. All of them have come back to the task force to say this is what they would like to see put in place for COVID. So we've had documents in terms of what the standards would be for COVID, and we've sent them to the Ministry of Health. They just received those yesterday. They will look over that and see if those are acceptable. In terms of the hotels specifically, because of our standards, CAFA has put together a document which we think is very good. And my team and I will go through that and look at what can be added to our standards already. So then what comes after this is once the Ministry of Health approves or does not, or they have questions about how we move forward, it will be added to our standards for all these industries. So once your tourism approved from this year on, it will make sure that the COVID aspect is included in it. So if you don't pass the COVID aspect, you will not be tourism approved. And I'm sure many people have seen the tourism approved stickers on taxis. If you go to a hotel, you see the certificate and these sort of things. We're working on restaurants and all of that right now. So that is going to become part of what our tourism approved standards are. We were one of the countries that have led on standards within these industries, so much so that we have countries asking us how did we do it, especially for the taxi drivers and the hoteliers. And we're moving even further forward in terms of how we look at it and what we put in place. So the task force has been a very good initiative for the government, and we're just working with it to move it forward. And as we continue to put things in place, stakeholders and Vincentians will know what they have to look at and what they have to do.
So when we talk about being COVID-19 standardized, what are some of the things that would have to happen?
Well, there's certain things. As I said, everything hasn't been approved. So for example, you have a hotel. Make sure you have this hand sanitizers around the hotel. Make sure that when your guests are checking in, that they are checked by the thermometer to see what we're looking at. All of these things, the protocols that have already been put in place for people coming in. And so we're looking at everything, because as I spoke about Marriott and what they're doing in terms of what their protocols are now. Because one of the things with COVID, you want to limit the interaction between your workers and the guests in terms of that. So we're looking at what can we do, what can we put in place to make it as customer friendly or client friendly, whichever way you want to look at it, to make sure that our guests and our visitors to St. Vincent and the Grenadines feel comfortable coming here. Not only comfortable, but feel safe. So you're looking at the hand sanitizers. One of the things in hotel restaurants that you don't put the placings there before your knives and forks before you wait until your guests come and sit down before you place those, and that you have the running hot water. All these things, some of which we've had in place before, that now with COVID, we even have to be more stringent in making sure that we have these things in place.
Okay, I think there's a question. Kenley John wants to know, based on the pathetic federal government response in the USA to this pandemic, are you prepared to reconsider allowing folks from the states to enter the country, especially with this new major outbreak in the southern border states, including Texas, California, and Florida?
Want me to take it first?
Well, first of all, I expect that the countries themselves would have, and the airlines themselves would have certain protocols that they will put in place before persons travel out of the country. And I think Glenn just outlined quite fully what the protocols that we have here, so that the person can either have the option of either doing the test 2 days before they leave the country, and when they they can show that test and not be subjected to tests here, or they can come here and be tested. And as I indicated, we have to be able to respond quickly if there is a positive case. But the idea is that we allow persons to feel free to travel to the destination. It might be easier for them to test where they are coming from, to make their travel even less of a hassle. So I think that we're going to be welcoming everyone, despite of where they come from. And I think that there is a bubble in place for persons from the Caribbean. They would be recognized as being from a region that is less impacted, and therefore there's a bubble for persons traveling from the Caribbean region. And the Ministry of Health has sent out a release, and it's included in the protocols that can be seen on the Tourism Authority's website.
I can talk a little bit about the bubble in just a moment, but I want to talk a little bit, if you will, about a situation which occurred in Antigua quite recently. I'm sure you may have heard of that, where some tourists came in and were actually tested positive, and then they had a problem with what they were told to do, the instructions given, and they flew back to the United States, where they encountered some further problems, and now the government is reconsidering its protocols. Mm-hmm. You think we'd ever have a situation occur like that?
Well, I don't think we should be afraid that there will be challenges and teething issues as we implement these protocols. We can also learn from our neighbors and their experiences, and that is going to be very important as well. So we expect that we'll have some challenges, but it's for us to be prepared. And as I indicated, thus far, as a government, as departments, arms of government, the various entities, and as a country, we have managed this thing quite well. So I do not see us departing from that track of having a good track record. Yes, of managing the various processes and COVID-19 in a very professional and efficient manner.
I think there's another question. Okay. Will it be mandatory for hotel and hospitality workers to wear masks is the Ministry of Health still advocating that our folks wear masks once outside their homes? I think really the first question is probably what you guys can deal with. And
yeah, I mean, what the Hotel and Tourism Association has put forward in terms of, and I spoke about that earlier, in terms of that's what the Ministry of Health is, that their workers do wear masks, and that their workers every day when they come in, they're checked. Their temperature is checked. I think there's no denying that, and to minimize the contact between the hotel workers and the guests just because of how easily COVID spreads. You know what it comes down to, and Minister spoke about it earlier, is that nobody has gotten it perfect, and we have to look at the balance of what is taking place. You cannot separate health from the economy in this pandemic. I can even go further. You cannot separate health from the economy from national security, because no matter what, and Minister can correct me, the first priority is the health and safety of your nationals. We want people to come into St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We want people to visit, enjoy themselves, relax. We want our nationals to come back, feel safe. But it is striking the balance of everything. What took place in Antigua is unfortunate. As Minister said, we learn from each other. But if you look at everything overall, I don't think there's anybody in their right mind that can say that the Caribbean has not dealt with this very well. There's always room for improvement, mind you. But in terms of everything moving forward, I listened to the Minister of Tourism from Jamaica yesterday in terms of what they're putting in place. They have the 14-day quarantine, and even that has not gone perfectly well. You know, they've had some hiccups. Antigua also had in the 14-day quarantine. That has not gone well, obviously. So it's a matter of putting everything in place. And I think what we need to look at from St. Vincent and the Grenadines' point of view is to make sure that we have the testing on point, making sure that we're prepared. Because one of the things I think people forget, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has 5 airports. 5.
Very important.
Right? So it's not to say you're just coming in at AIA.
And several seaports as well.
And several seaports. And so when you look at it, yachting is our biggest niche market. So we've released the yachting protocols. We had an issue with some yachties that came in today where they went to the wrong place to be tested. But those are hiccups that are going to be there, and we corrected that quickly. Those are hiccups that are going to be there. But as I tell my children, I have no problem with you making a mistake. I prefer you not make one. But it's a matter of not repeating the mistake. You learn from it. And that's how we have to look at it. There are going to be hiccups.
Back in just a moment.
Channel 114. BEACHE. Channel 114.
On Friday, July 3rd,
There'll be thousands of dollars to be won. A lotto jackpot of
$66,000.
a new home, car, or that college education.
Lotto, you have to be in it to win it.
Next lotto jackpot,
$66,000.
Paying is faster and easier with Flow FastPay. Use your MasterCard or Visa and pay from anywhere. Log on to discoverflow.co/fastpay and press consumer. Select your country and enter your account number. Enter the amount to be paid and an email address. Enter your credit card information. You'll receive a payment confirmation with the transaction details, along with a receipt to your email address. It's fast, safe, and easy. Flow, keeping you connected.
Welcome back. Domestic travel, local vacations or staycations, as you have termed them, how can they boost tourism?
Well, I think that we, as a ministry, we have been discussing this concept for a long time. You know, discussions with the Tourism Authority, Hotel and Tourism Association, we have put that on the table. And I think that it's an opportune time for us to implement what we have been discussing for years. And I take note that some of our Caribbean islands have already rolled out their staycation programs. Now, this requires the Hotel and Tourism Association hopefully to offer very attractive rates. They have already been doing several things to encourage locals.
Being the operative word, yeah.
They have been rolling out programs to get local persons to come to their establishment by having different types of activities. It requires the tour operators, the taxi operators to also offer attractive rates. It will require us to have packages on offer. It would require the National Rivers, Parks and Beaches Authority and they have been doing some sprucing up of the various tourism sites. I myself have been leading the way.
I noticed. I have not been invited to any, but I get pictures though.
Oh yes, I've never received so many pictures from the ministers over the past few weeks.
Yes.
I have made it my business to go and revisit, because I've been to some of these places. Some I've never been to before. But persons have the opportunity, Vincentians have the opportunity to learn more about their country. You would be surprised the amount of persons who have never gone to the Grenadines, much less these waterfalls and pools that we have all over St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So it's an opportunity for Vincentians they can, if they don't want to go and check in a hotel, they can stay at home and do these packages, whether in the week or weekend. We have children who have been locked up in their homes for months, because we know that we close school. It is a time for families to take them into a setting where they can relax and have fun and get to see their own country at very reasonable cost. Persons are still a little apprehensive about traveling, and therefore you don't have to travel out. Enjoy your vacation right here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I think that we have all of the framework in place for that to happen as soon as possible. We should have the various programs rolled out quite soon, but persons can look forward to being able to enjoy St. Vincent and the Grenadines and become ambassadors of their country, so that they can then help to sell Destination SVG. We have been doing a number of things in terms of a practice run. Because when you look at the various business places, you see a number of them have protocols in place. very soon we should hear about relaxing of the social aspect requirements across St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I'm sure that would be put out before the end of this week. So persons can begin coming together, but practicing the same health and hygiene aspects that we've been asking them to do. Still social distancing as far as possible. Optional wearing of the mask, encouraged, but optional wearing of the mask. So those are things that we can begin doing even before persons come to the destination. The same will apply for sporting and cultural activity. We saw that we successfully implemented the VPL, the Vinci Premier League, a couple of weeks ago. It was the first sporting event anywhere over the world. And we were able to implement the necessary protocols and successfully host that tournament. The August weekend would be a long weekend, and the ministry will be having activities that would allow persons to be entertained, to have a good time, but still observe the necessary protocols that will allow us all to be safe. So persons have a lot to look forward to, and we have been having our trial runs and practice runs in preparation for welcoming our visitors.
Someone wants to know, is St. Vincent able to do the 70-hour test before departure to USA?
Well, we have been operational relative to the PCR testing for a couple of weeks now. So we can do testing right here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and that is why persons would only be required to have a one-day quarantine when they come into the destination, because we will take the test, you go in your hotel or your home, quarantine for 1 day, and you'll get your results in 1 day. So the answer is yes. Yeah, the tests are here available.
I think we have the PCR capabilities. What Minister just said there is right on point, but it should also be known that if you take your test, your PCR test, at least 72 hours before you get to St. Vincent and present that here as negative, then you go. Right, so that's part of the protocol. I am not sure what the protocol is for the United States. As a matter of fact, I believe the protocol is different for different states, right? But I think if you want your PCR test before you go up, I don't think it's a matter of us being able to handle it. I think, judging from what we've done over the past few months, we've come a long way. Our professionals have done a tremendous and amazing job in terms of what we put out there. And as I said before, I think the Caribbean on a whole, CARICOM in particular, have done a great job in how we've dealt with this. There have been hiccups. We look at those hiccups, we try and correct them as well as can be, but I think we've done a great job, and we move forward. We have to monitor what is taking place around the world. When you look at, and the previous question, 2 questions ago, in terms of Texas, Florida, Arizona, of course we're going to look at that carefully and see how it, but as we are right now, and that's why we haven't released what phase 2 is about, because we're looking at phase 1 and making sure that we have that on point, and we look at everything and see how we can adjust it if we have to, if we don't have to. But we want people to come home. I mean, you can't deny that the economics, the health, and national security, if you want to put that in, all come and form one basis in terms of how we deal with this pandemic.
Great. And as we count down towards the end of the program, I want to say I've always been an advocate of staycations. I mean, ever so often, I'm in Beacche, I'm in Union Island, I'm in Sandy Bay, I'm in Georgetown.
You're a practitioner.
Yes, you know. So I encourage that. So, Glenn, tell us about some of the exciting things.
There is, part of it is, and Minister spoke about it before, I don't think a lot of Vincentians know what St. Vincent and the Grenadines has to offer. He spoke about there are a lot of people who have never been to Beacche, to Union. Everybody has their favorite Grenadine island and so on. I'm a Union man. Right, nothing against Myron and so on.
I love them all.
But everybody has their own preference. I mean, Minister, before he got into the political realm,
I love them all.
Right, yeah. I mean, as a bank manager,
we have to say that, please,
you worked in all of them, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All of them have their own special uniqueness about it, right? But Minister has been taking it upon himself to make sure and travel around St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the many waterfalls we have, and experience it. And that is part of it. I mean, I'm not happy about the pandemic, but you have to look at the glass as either half full or half empty. And I think we as Vincentians need to look at it as half full. This is a chance for us to go out and see what St. Vincent and the Grenadines has to offer, the beauty of it. Now, mind you, when I say that when we visit these places, we also have to be responsible, because I'm quite perturbed about the littering still in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And when we go on a goat cook and a river cook and so on, we still leave a lot of things. We need to make sure we carry our garbage bags, take our garbage with us. So I want to make that. I want to make that clear. But the destination that is St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the product that is St. Vincent and the Grenadines, what I consider to be the most diverse destination in the Caribbean, I think us as Vincentians need to experience it. Look at the staycations. Carry your family there for a night. Young Island, Paradise, Mariners, Beckway Beach Hotel, all these things. Even to go down to the Tobago Keys, which is a beautiful site, a beautiful product, part of the product of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. No, it's not expensive. You get together with friends, and the price comes down considerably, and you can make that trip. So take advantage of it. This is a time for Vincentians to get to know what St. Vincent and the Grenadines is all about.
And what a wonderful way to end this evening's program. Thank you, guys. So glad that you could join us. The Minister of Tourism, CECIL MCKIE, Chief Executive Officer of the S3 Tourism Authority, Mr. Glen Beach.
And your cousin.
Don't ever forget that.
Yes. Our pleasure to be here.
Yes.
Teresa.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this evening, and we hope to see you again next week, Wednesday.
Staycation.
Don't forget, enjoy that staycation.
Yes.
You don't want to miss out on the virtual showcase of Vinci Mas, June 26th to July 7th. The events of Vinci Mas 2019 will be shown on the corresponding dates of the scheduled events for Vinci Mas 2020. It's Pan, Mas, Calypso, and Soca. All will be shown on VC3 TV at 2 p.m. daily. Then catch the repeat on social media broadcast, 9 p.m. simultaneously on VC3 and Vinci Mas Facebook pages. Mars. It's absolutely free. The virtual showcase of Vincy Mars, June 26th to July 7th on VC3 TV and Facebook.
Paying is faster and easier with Flow FastPay. Use your MasterCard or Visa and pay from anywhere. Log on to discoverflow.co/fastpay and press Consumer. Select your country and enter your account number. Enter the amount to be paid and an email address. Enter your credit card information. You'll receive a payment confirmation with the transaction details, along with a receipt to your email address. It's fast, safe, and easy. Flow, keeping you connected.
Channel 114. BEACHE. Channel 114.